Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Ehsan Sadri, board-certified ophthalmologist, and also a Visionary Ventures co-founder and partner here in Newport Beach, California. I'm just super excited for my friend and colleague to join us. For those of you who don't know him, he's going to, talk a little bit more about himself. But I've gotten to know him for the last 5-10 years now. And it's just been, he's not only a colleague, but a friend. And his recent role in CooperVision is super exciting. But before we talk about that, I want to introduce to you his background, and he's going to do a great job kind of explaining his experiences. Probably one of the most comprehensive, experienced leaders in eye care. And then also on a personal note, we attended the OIS. It was just phenomenal. Kudos to Maureen and Craig for doing such a phenomenal job. And, I haven't had the opportunity to do these podcasts for some time, but it's great to be back. And I'm just super excited to have my good friend, Rajeev Garg, Global Head Myopia Management Strategy, here with us today from CooperVision. Welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you, Sam, for the kind introduction, and really excited to be here. Thank you for OIS for having me. And I have to say sincere gratitude to you, as first of all, before you and I say anything, because you are the one who got me started. I remember like a decade ago when I started in ophthalmology. Yours was the first OR I joined. You taught me, you kind of mentored. You're an amazing person. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. We for those of you who don't know, he came to the OR. It was his first day on the job, I think, or first week on the job. Our mutual friend, Jeff Castillo, who is now in aesthetics, joined us, and he came, and I took him some interesting fall afterwards.
For listeners of the OIS podcast, we invite you to register for the upcoming Ophthalmic Innovation Summit at SECO on March 1st in Atlanta. Join the leading ODs and industry executives to see carefully selected startup companies present therapies in development for glaucoma, dry eye, presbyopia, myopia, and retinal diseases. To register, visit www.ois.net and use promo code OIS podcast to save $100. Don't miss out. Register to attend today.
Well, yeah, as you said, right now, my role is at CooperVision as global head of myopia management strategy. And I've been doing this for about 3 years now at CooperVision. But my career in eye care is 15 years or so. I got started back in optometry at Johnson & Johnson. And then the last 10 years or so in ophthalmology before joining Cooper. Before this, I was a head of U.S. marketing for the cataract and the refractive business at Bausch and Lomb. And prior to that, the global head of marketing at Johnson & Johnson for the IOL and the Technics brand for this piece. It's been an amazing journey for me.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. There's a lot there to unpack. With your background prior to eye care. Before you get into eye care, what do you think was different between what it offers in eye care as a sort of in a leader versus your previous experience? What was different about it?
Eye care, it's just been amazing, right? Prior to coming to eye care, I was with the pharmaceutical side of the business at Abbott and Merck. Eye care is an industry, of course, the most important asset for a human being, but it's very innovation driven. That's kind of been my theme of my 15 years, where innovation gets paid for. Whether I was at Visticon doing the drug delivery contact lenses, just new category, or at J&J or Abbott, the innovation is just theme and engine, building categories and driving innovation. That's kind of been my biggest, excitement in this whole field. And second big one is just you guys. Am I right? The community, the medical professional community is just so amazing. I mean, you look at any other medical field, right? It's just so difficult. You guys such a good partners with the industry, collaborative and working in driving the patient outcomes from that perspective. So those two if I have to pick out, has been the major theme for me, just stands out for ophthalmology.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Most of our colleagues and friends who join ophthalmology tell me the exact same, almost verbatim. They said it's once you go into eye care, you can never leave eye care.
Yeah, it's so
So
true.
so those are, and I think it's because it's collegial, and I think it is. There's a lot of innovation cycles. I also think the other reason is probably because the doctors that gravitate towards this field are very entrepreneurial. I think that's another. They're very open, progressive. They deal with a lot of patient share billing. So they're used to, patients coming in for vision correction surgery, or let's say other things that are not quote insurance covered. And so there's a lot of emphasis on how do we get better at that, better IOLs, better lasers, et cetera. So culturally, I think to your point, there's a lot of emphasis. So, but I want to unpack your career, because I think, you get pharma, you get the MBA, now you're back and you're doing med device, and you work for a big corporate, and surgical. Tell me about that. How is that? Give me some highlights of that as far as your career goes, as far as, what you've learned. What were some key points you thought you took away from each of those roles, BNL, Johnson & Johnson, and now Cooper?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Prior to coming into eye care, as you said, my career was more on the R&D side of the business. Am I right? I was pharmaceutical at Abbott and Merck. And then I got my MBA and moved into this area of eye care, and never left. From that perspective, as we said, for all the reasons. I think, each role kind of has built onto one another. At Johnson & Johnson, or, former AMO acquired by Johnson & Johnson, it's really great innovation that we drove in the premium IOL space, helping build the category, how important that is. It's a very, very strong brand marketing company, but it's also extremely talented R&D, as you've seen there from that perspective. So that really ingrained in me, the importance of innovation in driving the market and working with the customer, being customer centric. So I think, as you recall, we used to partner. How do we build a premium IOL category? I mean, this is real benefit for patient, real benefit for customer, real benefit for the eye care professionals as well.
Yeah.
At BNL, building on there was really BNL was a more of a rebuilding opportunity from there. As BNL has been going through a lot of ups and downs. They were really in a turnaround situation, but they had some key things. But the team didn't change. And coming from ophthalmology into now where my role is in optometry, or it's a kind of a partnership between ophthalmology and optometry, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. It's the same. We are driving the innovation in myopia with all the evidence-based product, but it's about building that category, the myopia category. It's very similar and analogous to what happens there, and driving the innovation from that perspective. So that's just a common theme that kind of binds my career, and also the experiences I've learned from each other as well.
That's terrific. I think so. There's a lot more, and I could bring you back and talk more about. There's a lot of people that probably watch this, and from their career and like to learn more. And you're so open and transparent, which is great. But I'd love to at some point bring you back and talk more about your sort of little bit more as far as how that the skill sets you've learned help you navigate in your career, especially big pharma, big surgical, a lot of politics, as you know. So and they don't teach you this stuff in B school, right? They don't teach you this stuff in school. But it's all school of hard.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, they don't do that. We had our dean of Princeton here in Orange County, and I was having evening with him, and it's hey, if I were to come back, and this is one thing I like you guys to learn and teach your students is how do you survive in the corporate world? Yeah,
it's not easy. So let's talk about now what you and I have in the last 2 years, 3 years now, your new role and what you're bringing to the table. Why do you think they brought Rajeev Garg into Cooper? What is your skill set? Where's the company going? What are you excited about?
Yeah. Yeah, so CooperVision, has been at the forefront of myopia management. They've been leading in this space for, gosh, a long time. We have probably the most comprehensive portfolio of myopia management products, starting with the MySight, which is the only FDA and NMPA-approved product, which has strong clinical evidence. And then they have, a whole portfolio of ortho care lenses as well. The reason they brought me in was, really they wanted to really commit behind this space. They, had acquired so many companies. And in my current role, I'm responsible for market development, acquisitions, joint ventures, and licensing as well, where they wanted to see, okay, how do we become the leader in this space? Where do we take this category? Not just so much to drive today, the portfolio we have and we just acquired a myopia management spectacle company. For child, as you know, spectacles is the most common modality of vision correction. So that we are, in the process of commercializing it with our joint venture partner, Luxottica, from that. And I think then the second part is like this really categories, and I'm proud of CooperVision investing in that is, education and training and building the category as we talked about. So my experiences in ophthalmology and building that category were something that I could bring to the table for there as well. So CooperVision is really going after that in teaching, educating eye care professionals, providing them the tools like we did in the premium IOLs. Very similar approach there for that piece as well. So I think that's some of the things where CooperVision is. Where of course where their full comprehensive portfolio, very evidence-based portfolio, and also like investing in raising the consumer awareness piece. As you know, it's so important for consumer like patients and child to be aware. Very similar to my role there in the previous J&J and P&L, that we're dedicated. It's very critical that we drive that awareness as well. So that's kind of some of the things that's going on at Cooper and kind of how we're kind of looking at going forward.
So that's terrific. And you see the latest data on pathologic myopia, especially OUS. I mean, it's staggering, right? The number of children, and specifically in China, there's, some reports up to 8 to 9 times the amount of myopia compared to the rest of the world. And this modernization, do you feel that even with all the stuff you're doing, do you think we're going to make a sort of dent in this? Where do we go from this? I mean, the demographics are just staggering. Cost is always a barrier of entry for people. How do we reconcile that? What's the companies and really as an ecosystem as a whole? Yeah. What are some thoughts on how do you sort of do populational sort of support for these for the kids?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. All right, so in the East Asia, China, like the problem of myopia at epidemic levels has been recognized. It's like now, as we see the increasing prevalence and severity of myopia worldwide, that's starting to really evolve and change the views of eye care professionals. I think it's pretty well established, right, the impact that myopia has. And I think having that evidence to show that like really the long-term impact of this is very severe. Every diopter increase in myopia increases the risk of retinal detachment, glaucoma, cataract. That's kind of out there. The products are out there, as I said, like Cooper has a comprehensive portfolio. There are other companies who are coming into the marketplace, but the penetration is still very low. I think that's the key, right? The penetration is low. And I think the barrier you look at it is from all aspects. So, in terms of whether the ECP, whether it's your practice, whether it's the patient awareness from there. So we kind of look at, okay, how do we drive that patient awareness piece? It's very important. to do that. And not just do it ourselves, we also try to do it in partnership with other organizations. The GMAC we talked about at the OIS panel for perspective, right? It's an organization which is very unique. It didn't exist on the ophthalmology side. It's trying to bring all the industry together and drive consumer awareness. For the ECP, right? For a busy ECP, it takes a chair time. You probably heard this, similar thing from places. So, but they have to prioritize it, right? They have to prioritize the importance of myopia. They have to take the onus on educating the parents and patients for the importance of myopia. And for the practice, it's very challenging. It's challenging to, how do I get started? What do I do? What's the protocol? How do I talk to the patient about the cost? The same barriers that you've kind of heard in the past from there are there. It's in this myopia categories which we need to overcome, and that's what we kind of drive. WCO, which has kind of recognized that it's this laid out as that this should be a standard of care around 3 pillars. They talk about mitigation, measurements, and control. And there, I would encourage everyone, all the listeners here, go on the WCO website and take the pledge. There are over 26,000 ECPs who have taken the pledge for making myopia management as a partnership. So that's kind of as I would see as a barriers from every aspect. Very similar products are out there. These companies are out there. Reach out to companies like CooperVision or whoever your partner is to help them set up. They'll help you establish, they'll help you set up on this and get going from that perspective. So it's truly a partnership. And as you said, the whole ecosystem need to come together for helping drive this.
So so from a therapeutic standpoint, and tell me a little bit more about your strategy. Obviously, you have great products and you're doing a tremendous amount of education, both on consumer, but also ECP. Do you see yourself partnering up with like Eyenovia or a Syndexit or, doing a merger? What are your thoughts on that as far as, because the data is pretty staggering. It's not just, it's multimodal treatment, right?
Yeah. As of now, we're like a device company. So we have very comprehensive portfolio of optical interventions. We're like really focusing behind is having very strong evidence-based product. Like MySight has 7 years of clinical data. I've probably not seen in medical devices, forget about contact lenses, that kind of strong data from that perspective. But as you said, I think, there is a lot more innovation coming. Right. So we hopefully will see, these pharmaceutical, there are multiple companies that have presented at OIS panels who are working through that. We don't have that modality in our portfolio. So we welcome that. I don't know if we will or not, but that I can't say, but that's definitely a modality that's going to be there. And hopefully we'll see it soon in FDA-approved products that the multiple companies are working through from that piece. Spectacles is, we talked about, is another technology that's, hopefully will get FDA approvals. But beyond that too, I see, a lot of other innovation that's happening in this space. You saw at your meeting, the computer-based technologies that have been presented. In the Asia, I see red light therapy being looked at from that perspective. So there is, I think the innovation is happening. We have a strong portfolio. it's hard to say at this point, like, okay, where we will go in partnering with these. We have done multiple, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've probably taken 5 or 6 companies, but there were a lot in the, still in the optical intervention space from there. And beyond that too, Ehsan, I see, this is exciting. This is exciting because the innovation is happening not just on the product space, but also beyond product too, right? Like, the diagnostic companies we talked about. I know you use the word ecosystem and the diagnostic companies, but also like, how the innovation in how do you actually help the practices adopt faster? The digital tools. We just announced a partnership with Ocumetra as well in terms of helping the practices adopt better from that piece. So it's happening. Other whole field is starting to come together, and it's really, really exciting to see.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And so, we could spend, another hour talking about about not just this, but other technologies. Where do you see yourself? What are you excited about? Are you just going to focus mostly on just optical modalities? Are you thinking, other disease states? Can you give us whatever you're comfortable with, where the company is going? I mean, you've done really well, obviously, really well. I mean, from a revenue standpoint, Cooper has. Where do you see that they're allocating in R&D? Which space are they? Are they just going to dedicate to this space, or are you thinking there's might be some other spaces that you might be interested in?
Yeah, so we look at everything. So that's kind of my job. Like we look at, as I mentioned, we look at everything that comes in this space from that perspective. Our R&D team is extremely talented. That we have a very strong pipeline, and we're investing in this optical intervention space from that perspective. Where we go, I can't comment on the future from that perspective, but I can say it's good thing is people come like CooperVision, where they come to us for myopia management. We're the leader. If there is somebody working on the myopia space, they actually reach out to us rather than us reaching out to them, saying, hey, we have this technology. A lot of them presented at your OIS meetings as well from that. Little like the side note, actually, the side glass vision, the company we acquired and doing a joint venture with Eslo, actually, we first met them at OIS, actually. From there. I think we kind of are out there. We look at everything, but that's where we are today.
That's terrific. So, we like to, at least I like to just sort of go over on the tail end of this podcast, go over some people that are sort of starting their careers where you were 20, 30 years ago in eye care or not. What are some leadership skills or some of the pearls you would give to somebody who's their sort of initial phase of their career? How do you get through the challenges? How do you get through the surprises and what I call the T-bones in your, or as Bill Link, when I had him on, he says near-death experiences in the companies. What do you say to that? What's your thoughts on that? What do you lean on? And what are some advice for young people in their careers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ehsan. To think about this one, one thing that has helped me is always be customer centric. Be out there with your customer. If you know your field, get to know the area you're working in and work with passion. Listen to the customer's need, and that way you can never go wrong. From that perspective, you will be able to drive the innovation in the company. You will be able to talk with credibility, talk with honesty and transparency. I mean, as you said in the beginning, for there. So I think the customer piece to me is the main. The other one is focus on innovation and put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. And innovation, I don't mean in terms of product, innovating yourself is what I mean in this sense, is put yourself in the uncomfortable situation. I'll tell you my personal example is, I had a really good career in pharma with PhD from Princeton, and then decided I can do better by being, in the business side or the marketing side, and took the leap. Not many would leave their, career after PhD and pharma and say, I'm going to go to marketing and start. And I did that. And I would never do anything again. I mean, this just paid off handsomely for me. And the last one and the third one I probably would say is have good mentors, both inside and outside. I have really had good bosses and good mentors. There was Karen Grantham, an HR lady at J&J, that was instrumental in my career. You've been instrumental in mine in terms of learning there. Jeff Castillo has brought me there. I mean, Cameron Round. I can go. I just think build that network of mentors. Just go out there, say, hey, how would you do that? Help me. And people are very willing to mentor and help from their perspective. So I think that comes to the top of my mind, Ehsan.
I'm sure you're a mentor to a lot of people. You're very humble too. And these are pearls that I think really help people navigate in their career, because we all run into challenges, and but I got to tell you, I'm proud of you. It's been great being your friend, and also just working together, and just your contributions you're giving to eye care, especially for the needy kids that we have out there. Just wonderful. It's great to see great, smart minds like yourself creating the next sort of therapeutic modalities for children and beyond. So it's just been a pleasure. I'd love to have you on again. And OIS would love to have you on the panel. And I wanted to say thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you, Ehsan. Thank you. It's been a great opportunity. I think, it's been a pleasure to know you. Thank you for the OIS. I'm really passionate right now what I'm doing about myopia. For that perspective, my message to the listeners here is, don't wait, start early, start practicing the clinical evidence-based myopia for that perspective. And for the young, I think, as you talked about, go out there. Though this space of eye care is just amazing.
Absolutely.